welcome to our Intellect Global Consumer webinar based on Design the Thinking, Driving a Culture of Innovation. I thank you all for joining. My name's Dennis Clafferty, and I lead sales here in Frankfurt for the DACH region. I first came across design thinking last year as part of my induction into Intellect Design. And on my trip to Chennai, I was lucky enough to meet all the product owners, SMEs, and was given a tour of the design center, which is based in Chennai in southern India. I left this center after one day feeling really calm, empowered, innovated by my experience. And I really wanted to share that today with you as part of the way forward in design thinking, as we use that within Intellect Design as a powerful, really human-centered approach to problem solving that goes far beyond temporary fixes. I think it's challenging our leaders, certainly internally with us. We spend more time working on the root causes and asking why instead of resorting to quick solutions. And I really believe this mindset encourages curiosity, empathy, being creative, and that leads to deeper insights and lasting impact. So I'm really excited to be able to share this knowledge with you today. As many of you, as you know, on the invite, we had announced Dr. Anbu as one of our speakers for today's session. However, unfortunately, due to some critical health issues, Anbu's unable to join us this morning. I certainly miss his presence, as all of us will, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Health is wealth, Anbu. So I'm, in the spirit of moving forward, I'm incredibly honored as well to have an exception leader for us today in today's session, Mr. Ramakrishnan. Ramak is in charge of the center that I visited last year, and this is managed by him and his team. Ramakrishnan is the vice president of this FinTech Design Center, Intellect Design, a really recognized leader in the world of FinTech, and brings 25 years of diverse experience in banking faculties, a career that reflects really 360-degree of the industry. In his role, Ramakrishnan champions the adoption of design thinking with us, and he's driving transformation journey from the design mind to design being, embedding real design DNA as a core differentiator in creating value for us. Ramak has really successfully applied the design thinking to craft powerful training curriculum that has enabled our stakeholders to excel in their roles within Intellect Design. A really free thinker and an avid reader, Ramak's passion for sharing knowledge and fostering creativity knows no bounds, and I'm looking forward to reading his new book soon. With that, Ramak, I would like to hand over to you, and good luck bringing across this induction to design thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. That was a very nice introduction. So while I share my screen, normally questions are asked by the participants at the end. I would like to flip it on its head, and probably I will ask some questions right now. Definitely not expecting an answer. It is only to introspect as to what the potential answers could be for the context, the role in which you are performing. So there is no right answer, wrong answer. And as I said, definitely I'm not seeking an answer right now. Since we are talking of culture of innovation, these questions, among many other questions, become very, very pertinent. Question number one: when was the last time you did something for the first time? I repeat the question. When was the last time You did something for the first time. Question number 2. How do you define success in your role? You are performing a role. How do you say that you are contented? You have done something phenomenal, recognizable. You have made an impact when you are playing that role. When do you say that? How do you say that? That's the second question. Third question. What's the difference between change and transformation? Loosely used words, but very, very powerful words. What's the difference between change and transformation? Fourth question, name one courageous act you have done. Name one courageous act you have done. And last question, what does culture mean to you? Culture again is a very, very, used in all contexts. It's used as a verb, noun, adverb in all parts of speech. But what does culture mean to you? With these questions as the premise, I would like to start the session for today. We were originally called Polaris Software. Polaris as an organization got split into two between Polaris and Intellect. And the reason for that is the application of design thinking. We did not want to be called as an order-taking organization because we were predominantly in the services business. We wanted to move away from being an order taker to an agenda setter. That is a significant shift in mindset transformation. And it is due to that the organization got split into two. Whatever we achieved in a span of 15 years in Polaris was achieved in less than 7 years as a product organization. The who is who of the world's FinTech organizations, including the central banks of multiple countries, run on our product. That's the beauty of design the thinking. So this is the fundamental reason of application of design thinking within the organization. At Intellect Design Arena, design thinking is a culture. Design thinking is a DNA within the organization. You see a set of birds. If you count, there are 13. 13 has a significance as far as one of the frameworks is concerned, which we will see a little later. Our research, we have always found out that birds, when they sit in a tree, they don't fight with each other. They supplement each other. They help each other. Whereas if you put 4 or 5 leaders in a boardroom, there is always a tiff, there is always an argument. The inference, the reason that we found out was that birds have a 3-dimensional view of things. Human beings have 2-dimensional view of things. We always tend to show that in our behavior also. Oh, I am from quality. I'll think only about quality. I am from implementation. I will think only about implementation. I am from delivery. I'll think only about delivery. So there is a narrow-minded thinking wherein we are completely forgetting the customer for whom all of these are being done. So birds are a great example or a role model whom we can look up to for boundaryless thinking. We will see a couple of definitions of a design, and then 2 of them are taken from the public domain, and the third is Intellect's in-house approach. This is IDEO's definition of a great design. They say you get an experience when the human desirability, technology making it feasible, and business viability all come together. This is a Venn diagram. Probably there is no starting point here. But as a design thinker, I will say the human desirability should always be the starting point and should always be the continual focus point. We should never forget what people desire. Technology, we are all great at technology. We should never start with technology. Technology is an enabler. It's a last resort. And of course, viability. We all do business for profit. The viability is needed. But for successful experience that we want to give, the human desirability is definitely important. This desirability is a mystery. I do not know what people desire. People's desire keeps changing. It keeps elevating. Why people opened an account in my generation was completely different from why my father opened his savings account, and why today's generation open their account or do their banking needs today. It's a complete mystery. We try to solve it with probably some outmoded methods. It's a heuristic. It may work, it may not work, but ultimately it has to be an algorithm. What do we mean by algorithm here? It has to be predictable, it has to be repeatable, and it has to be scalable. Having said that, while the algorithm, the business as usual is going on, our mindset should go back to mystery. How else can I give the delight to the customer? How else can I unlock that mystery? The first one was from IDEO. The second, this particular approach, the design definition 2, is from Roger Martin's book, The Design of Business. Here, the author Roger Martin beautifully articulates examples from McDonald's. How, the Ray Kroc, when he took over from the McDonald brothers, he made an algorithm so that the experience wherever you go across the world is the same across any outlet. But you will never get to see the same person, but the experience is the same. That's the power of algorithm. So this desirability, which is a mystery, is a combination of stated and unstated requirement. The stated requirement the customer gives. If I deliver only the stated requirement, I'm an order taker. If I also deliver the unstated requirement, I'm an agenda setter. Most of the time, the unstated requirements are emotional in nature and not functional in nature. It is in our interest to understand what the unstated requirements are. But the question here is, why is the customer not able to articulate all their requirements? Because for the customer, it's a blind spot. I don't know that I don't know. The customer does not know what they need. When I say they do not know what they need, they are unable to articulate it better. Some of the customers tend to articulate it in the absence of a specific solution. I don't have this app. I don't have this gadget. That's actually a trap for a design thinker. We should never fall into the trap. We should always get into the job to be done rather than getting into the solution. The entire purpose of application of design thinking is to unearth the blind spot and understand the unstated requirements. If you are applying design thinking for this by applying the tools, the techniques, the frameworks, that's design thinking and nothing else. There is no need for any process. Like I always say in my workshops, we also have a process, but process is secondary. Process is more of a comfort zone. Get into understanding the blind spots and unstated requirements. How do you do that? By observing patterns and anti-patterns. Whatever works in favor is a pattern, and whatever are accidents are anti-patterns. So as a team, we are expected to write 100, 150, 200 patterns, an equal number of anti-patterns, which are happening today, which are becoming friction points, which are becoming accidents, so that we tend to understand the unstated requirements, which are more emotional in nature. And we can also connect the dots within the box and outside the box. What we essentially mean by within the box is questioning the fundamental assumptions that we are following through. There are many processes which have been there for last 15 years, 20 years, and we consider it as part of our culture. We don't look at the validity of those processes today. We always get emotional. I have heard people say this was designed by the managing director when he founded or she founded the organization. We always tend to answer the questions. We never question the answers. The boldness, the courage with which we question the answers is connecting within the box. Connecting outside the box is completely outside of your domain. Assuming I have a banking problem, how do you think army of of a country will solve the problem? How do you think hospitality industry would solve this problem? How do you think airline industry would solve the problem? Or say Bill Gates, or any other very influential Warren Buffett, they solve the problem. So become a different person and then start thinking your specific problem by thinking outside the box. These are the different definitions. The third definition is intellect's in-house approach, wherein there is a holistic approach of understanding the stated and unstated requirement. So if I have to give a lot of examples of a great design, for me personally, a safety pin is an example of a brilliant design. It was patented somewhere in 1840s. And till date, the design of a safety pin has not changed. It has become bigger, it has become smaller, the metal has changed, there's a plastic cap for fanciness, but the soul, the philosophy of the heart of that design has not changed. The same way with nail cutters also. The design has remained the same for ages and years. That's the power of a great design. And of course, if I have to have an interaction now as to what are the examples of a bad design, we can always talk about TV remotes to staircases to buildings to cars or the dashboards or the gears in the car, because some of it has been fitted based upon the developer's convenience rather than the user's need. So coming back, what are the elements of a great design? It has to be simple, easy to use. If I maybe love to use this particular language, it should be as simple as an idiot being able to use that particular thing. It should be idiot proof. So that's the power of simplicity. Then you have experience. We use a particular train or we go to a particular theater for watching a particular movie for the experience, because I'm able to live that experience repeatedly. I'm able to recall that experience. It's not the movie that is great. It's the overall experience wherein all the 5 faculties of yours have come into play. A great design is frictionless. There is less input, less touch points than necessary because it is very, very intuitive. And then you have efficiency. Efficiency is a hallmark which, with AI coming into our life, intruding our life, efficiency is a hallmark. If I input input 1x, I'm definitely expecting 15x or 20x. That's the kind of life we are living today. And complexity reduction. I want my life to be better. I want to have a better behavior. I want a smile in my face. That's the kind of complexity. And above all, questioning assumptions. We did see questioning assumptions. The more assumptions you question, you are building bridges. If you don't question the assumptions, you are building rigid walls around you. You will not be able to innovate. You will not be able to come up with fresh ideas. I read somewhere that the most difficult part is not coming up with new ideas. The difficult part is letting go of the old ideas, right? We are hooked on to our used to kind of an approaches, and that is becoming detrimental to coming up with a new product because we are unable to let go. So questioning assumptions is very, very important. I repeat what I said a couple of minutes earlier. Let us start questioning the answers. That is very, very critical. So these are the elements of great design. You, in your life, for you, whatever are examples of great design, let us keep technology away, right? Right from nature to the kind of food that you're eating, the kind of transportation you have, the kind of accommodation you have. I'm sure all of these things, one or more or all of these, will definitely be applicable for you. That's the element. These are the elements of a great design. The design mind is very, very important here. Like I said, for questioning assumptions, the design mind is important. Now, this 13 musical notes equated to the 13 birds that you saw in the first slide. These 13 musical notes help in creating a symphony in your team, to help collaborate, to help co-create, to provide that throughput, to provide that efficiency. That's the power of the design mind. At Intellect, we look at a human being in three different perspectives. One is the capability quotient, one is the emotional quotient, the other is the capacity quotient. First, let us look at the capability quotient. Capability is associated with what I can do in terms of skill, in terms of ability. Now, I have a skill. It's absolutely bookish knowledge. I have not applied that anywhere. It is just right in my head, but I have no practical experience of having applied that skill. Now, the more I apply that skill in real life scenario, I become an expert. Cognitively, expertise is known as depth of knowledge. The more deeper ability I have to drill down further, I am considered an expert. But is expertise alone enough? Definitely not. Beyond a point, expertise becomes a trap. It becomes a limiting point because you have focus area on only one area and you have forgotten the rest of the world, the ecosystem around you. So beyond expertise, beyond having knowledge 20,000 feet deep, you are expected to have a view 20,000 feet above. That's the perspective. In one word, what's the difference between expertise and perspective? Expertise is knowledge, perspective is wisdom. Wisdom tells me where to apply the knowledge, when to apply the knowledge, and even how much to apply the knowledge. Only great leaders with perspective will be able to connect dots across domains. Here we have shown technology and business. An expert in either technology or business is confined to that particular domain alone, whereas a person with perspective is able to connect dots across domains, which gives idea. Ideas do not come when you are stuck at one domain. It has to be connecting across domains. And such ideas only become viral and everybody aligns to it. This is the capability quotient. And this is a natural progression in the life of a human being. When they have the skill, they apply that skill repeatedly when they become an expert. I remember an HBR article wherein the article talks about 10,000 hours of rigorous practice, which makes you an expert. But that's not enough. You need to have the big picture view as well. Both you start with the snail view, then you have the eagle view. This is the capability quotient. Now I have all the right people in my team. I have people with perspective, one or two people with perspective. I have 3 or 4 people with expertise. I have newbies who can roll up their sleeves and start working, who are skilled completely. But the team may not work at the desired level, at the optimum level because of the emotional quotient. Now, what are the emotional quotients? These emotional quotients are like frictional forces. Friction is needed. Too much of friction is bad. No friction is also bad. And similarly, all the 5 emotional quotients that we are going to see right now are needed to a certain extent. Too much is bad. Not being there is also absolutely bad. The first one, doubt. Am I asking questions? Am I questioning the status quo? Am I only asking questions, but I'm not getting into action at all? That's doubt for you. Am I a constant approval seeker? Right? So this is where we don't tend to have new thoughts, new learnings coming in. So doubt is uncertainty. Uncertainty is bound to be there when we go into uncharted areas. But we should take the help of the system and then, start exploring further. That's doubt for you. Then you have conflict. A conflict with either the leader or amongst the team members, or across different parties, the customer and the delivery team. The conflict normally happens only because of these three reasons: the difference of opinion, difference of perspective, difference of expectation, right? The customer's expectation is always business oriented. The delivery team's expectation is always technology oriented. So how do you resolve that? By dialogue. Dialogue is all about what is right and not who is right. If who is right happens, alignment does not happen. So conflict is to be encouraged. Conflict is needed. If diverse opinions, diverse perspectives should be welcome. But again, holding on to your opinion, your perspective or expectation is a danger here. So let us have a dialogue and find out what is right. The next is anger. Anger coupled with authority is an absolute disaster. And many times anger stems from helplessness. I am helpless, so I show anger. I am not mentioning anger to be rage or showing tantrums. But here, what I mean by anger is, am I showing the intent? Because anger is a great vehicle for communication. But let not the message be missed in the anger. The message should be communicated through anger. And again, no anger is also absolutely bad. People will take you for granted. So anger in a certain measure is absolutely needed. And then fear. The hesitancy stems from fear. Fear of going wrong, fear of being judged, fear of failure, fear of commitment, fear of the unknown, right? All of these things do not allow us to take the next step. So we need to have courage. Like we always say in our workshops, do we have a budget for failure, right? If you have a budget for failure, then you will start having new thoughts. Then you will start getting into new products, new way of thinking. That's absolutely needed. And finally, the fifth emotional quotient is ego. Ego here is nothing with respect to spirituality or religion here. Ego is, I know it all, I know everything. So the no sooner you have this attitude of I know everything, you have closed yourself completely, and then you're not allowing anybody to come near you. Humility is needed. Having that porous mindset to allow fresh thinking process is definitely needed. So these emotional quotient elements are doubt, conflict, anger, fear, and ego. So I have capability. My emotions are in check, right? But what is preventing me from having the aspirated thinking, aspirational thinking? What is preventing me from having intrinsic motivation and not extrinsic motivation? That's the last three elements, which is the capacity levers. The first is vulnerability. If the system says, if your organization, if your department says, first time right, you should never fail, then you are always in a comfort zone. If the system allows you to fail, if the system allows you to make mistakes, then you will start having new thinking. Then you will start learning new things. You will be exploratory. Then your thinking will become 10x. Robin Sharma says, you cannot expand your comfort zone. You can only create newer comfort zones. And in the leadership journey, creating of newer comfort zones is absolutely mandatory and it's absolutely important. That's the 10x thinking for you. And then appreciation. When you appreciate somebody, don't just appreciate the successful outcome alone. Appreciate even the effort that has been put in. When somebody appreciates me, I go gaga, my capacity becomes 10x. I go and attack the problem with renewed vigor. That's the power of appreciation. It's a magic feeling appreciated. And then limiting beliefs. We are always confined to our own beliefs, thinking that, this is what is possible by me. This is what is capable. And, I tried some time back, I failed. So this makes our capacity X by 10. So there is no limit to our limiting beliefs. They are all self-imposed. So we need to overcome the limiting beliefs and say, I can do it. So these are the 3 capacity levers. So overall, we have 13 musical notes. Every human being has a user manual, and these 13 elements, elements are available in every human being. The more you are able to understand that, manage that, we will be able to create a symphony. That's why we termed it as 13 musical notes. So understand the human being behind every resource, every employee ID. Let us not limit them as a bell curve or just a market segment or anything like that. So human beings, let us treat them as human beings. So these are the 13 musical notes. There are 3 laws of design thinking. Now that we saw about the human being, now there are laws for design thinking. When you think of a solution, how should you be thinking of a solution? This is very, very critical, because it is very, very easy to get carried away with what I want to contribute, because it's my favorite idea, it's my favorite solution. So let me incorporate it inside this. So the first law is less is more. And what we mean by less is not something related to minimalism here. Less is focus on what matters most. Remove the redundancy. And to be honest, I have to do more to deliver less. That's less is more. Many times people tend to deliver a particular functionality just because they have or just because they can. But identify the actual need, the stated need, unstated need, the underserved need, and then deliver your product or a service. So less is more. How do you identify the less? By theory of prioritization. Design thinking gives you exponential growth and not a linear growth. It's not an incremental growth problem-solving approach. If you want exponential growth, then your prioritization also should be exponential. So it should be 10 times 10, 100, 10 times 100, 1,000. And there is a qualifier also here called grams. Why the gram has been put there? Because many times we get weighed down by what is staring at us. Our mind forms a shape of what is actually our biggest priority. It could be somebody's health, it could be my delivery, it could be something that I have to complete. There are so many things, but what is 1,000 gram for my customer? Not for me. Identify what's 1,000 gram for the customer. Keep the 10 gram and 100 gram, the low-hanging fruits on a watch list, because in design thinking, the low-hanging fruits are actually a trap. Keep them on a watch list. We will revisit it later, but focus on 1 or 2,000 gram items. When you focus on that 1,000 gram items, the last 2% becomes 200% in value. 98% of features of 2 competing products are nearly identical, but I love one product over the other. I have an affinity for one product or service over the other. I am ready to pay more for one product or service. I am ready to wait rather than use another alternative. That's the last 2%. Because it serves, that gives me an excitement, that gives me my experience. that's actually giving me a great impact. That's the last 2% equal to 200%. But believe me, today's last 2% is tomorrow's 98%. People get used to what you have given as a excitement, as the delight, and they want something more because that's taken for granted. So the last 2% equal to 200% is absolutely critical. So these are the three laws of design thinking. Less is more, theory of prioritization, and last 2% equal to 200%. So when you look for a solution, when for a product or a service, when you are creating a policy internally, or when you are even creating a PowerPoint presentation, ensure that you are applying these laws. This can be even applied to yourself as a leadership role. As a leader, am I cutting myself too thin, or is there any specific uniqueness that I am exhibiting so that the world around me benefits? So the three laws of design thinking are not just for creating digital products, it is applicable universally. So these are the three laws of design thinking. So what is design thinking? It's a human-centric approach. And what do we mean by human centricity? Is focus more on the person facing the problem more than the problem itself. The problem is secondary, my friends, but focus more on the person, understand the pain, they understand the agony, understand the anguish that person is going through. That is important. And let us be future focused. Don't just solve problems of today, foresee what problems could come in the near future, and then provide a solution accordingly. That is the need of application of design thinking. And finally, creates value. The person receiving your solution, receiving your product, receiving your idea should see the difference between money and meaning. When I say meaning, it appeals to the heart. That is absolutely critical, and that's creating value. When to use design thinking? There are two scenarios, and one is a puzzle, wherein for puzzles, you don't apply design thinking at all. You know, you know what the problem is, you know the obvious solution, go and apply it. So design thinking is not something you start applying it anywhere and everywhere. But design thinking is applicable for wicked problems. And how do I identify the wicked problems? When multiple people can't agree on actual problem at ease. Forget the solution here. I do not know what the actual problem is. There is a lot of debate with respect to what the actual problem is. Situation is continually changing. There is dynamism. I do not know what's creating that. Lots of data is available. Let me tell you, probably it may not be appealing to you. As design thinkers, we rely less on data. We need data. I'm not against data. We need data. But we are not data driven. We are data informed. That's a fundamental difference between being data driven and data informed. And there is no correlation of cause and effect or cause and consequence. When these criteria apply, you have a wicked problem. When you have a wicked problem, it's a classic case to apply design thinking. So why should you apply? We already spoke about it. We have to move from being an order taker to an agenda setter, and then aligning everybody to the higher purpose. Let everybody see the same North Star. Let us not each individually in the team see different things, right? Including your customer, including your competition. Everybody should be aligned to the higher purpose so that you are able to give them that experience. That is very, very important. So this is the reason you apply design thinking. So it's a journey from are we doing things right? Because I'm completely vulnerable. I don't know what to do today. Are we doing things right? Are we doing the right things? How do we decide what's right? So that collective activity is what is needed. I always say design thinking is a team sport and not an individual sport. So how do we decide what's right is absolutely critical. So design the thinking. The title slide that you saw is definitely not a typo, my friends. Design the thinking before thinking the design. Thinking the design is a solution part. But let us all take a step back and then understand ourselves, understand the team, understand the current product, current reality, understand the market, understand the competition, understand the customer's competition, understand my competition, right? So this is where we say, do not fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem, fall in love with the person who is facing the problem. And that's design the thinking. This is a famous quote by Dr. Ashok Kurwar. He was a coach and mentor to our chairman, and he was teaching at IIM Ahmedabad also. The ability to change our viewpoint from our own to that of the user is the key to design thinking. Like I said, if you have to empathize, if you have to get into somebody else's shoes, you better remove your shoes first. Design thinking helps you to remove your shoes. Design thinking helps you to get into somebody else's shoes. Design thinking helps you to walk in somebody else's shoes so that you can empathize completely. That's the beauty of design thinking. Using design thinking, we can design anything and everything, right from a product to a service to strategy. And not just design the strategy, but even communicate the strategy to the entire organization. Policy design, right? Talent design. How do we ensure that the right talent is in the right place? And how do we nurture them? Like they always say in human resources, attract talent, retain talent, and grow talent. How do we do it efficiently? Even in my absence, thing has to go, in a very, very smooth manner. Go-to-market design, career design. I'm a fresher who has joined an organization. How do I design my career? I have a midlife scenario. How do I design my life? All of these things are possible using design thinking. There are a couple of case studies with respect to how design thinking has been implemented. I'll just quickly rattle out for want of time because we are actually running out of time. The auto case study. Auto had a few challenges that they were, facing. One is, the payment management was not very, very efficient. And the credit solution and the fraud detection solution was not scalable. Of course, the fraud solution is, the people committing the fraud are becoming more and more technology conversant. So, that scalability is definitely needed. Flexibility, parameterization, future readiness was not that available in the current reality before implementation of our product. Transaction volumes, when it becomes high, the performance actually came down. And the third-party integration was always a challenge. So these were the challenges with the auto implementation. But later on, when we implemented the digital lending solution, there was a complete lifecycle management for credit, right? And there was configurability wherein the power was given to the customer to configure anything and everything, including the dashboards, including the interfaces, the rules. All of these things were configurable, parameterizable by the customer. The technology was scalable. And the partner integration was very, very smooth, and it increased the adoption. And the impact was auto was catapulted to market leadership. There was sustained growth, and there were optimized operations. So these are the examples of creating a product when you understand the customer's problems today. And then accordingly, because this is a country-specific implementation, these kind of issues may be there in a different country, may not be there. Another country would have a different kind of an issue, but understanding that, empathizing that is absolutely important. So how do you apply design thinking for creating a culture of innovation? Organizing the thinking space. It starts with the self. It starts with the team. We have a very beautiful acronym called LORD, L-O-R-D. L stands for listening. We all think we do listen, but let us be very introspective and then say, do we actually listen? Listening gives a lot of scope for unearthing unstated requirements and blind spots. O is for observation. Observe deeply, observe without any prejudice, observe without any preconceived notion, without any bias. Research about your customer, the primary research and secondary research, and finally the dialogue. D is for dialogue, LORD, listening, observation, reading, and dialoguing. That's a beautiful acronym which can be practiced every moment of our waking time, right? That's the beauty of it. And what are the blind spots for organizing thinking space, where the new opportunities are coming from? How do I continually give the last 2% equal to 200%? These are very, very important. And now, once you have done all these things for the self, you take it to the next level for designing the team and designing the organization, the department itself, by using the 13 musical notes. This is the power of organizing the design, the thinking space, so that the design, the thinking comes into picture. Expanding the performance space. Now, performance, what happens is I have a lot of excuses which are actually under the guise of limiting beliefs. Only seniors know everything. I do not know everything, right? That person, he's coming from that background. So obviously, he or she is not fit for that. This is not invented here. So, will not work here. There is always a need for supervisory approval because we are a hierarchy driven organization. So all of these things are you're limiting to the expanding the performance space. Create your own customizable frameworks. You have the belief framework, you have the cartographic view, you can have a circle time, right? People creating a safe zone for the entire team so that I articulate my joy, my inhibitions, my limitations. And at our organization here, we are very famous for having no agenda meetings. When we say no agenda, what we mean is it's purpose driven, but I will not say I will be discussing all these 5 points. It will go on in its own pace, and there will be a lot of different ideas coming in together. And if the meeting is not completed, probably it will continue in the next working day. That's the no agenda meeting. And of course, there are a lot of design thinking tools as well. And impacting business outcomes. How do I get different revenue growth? How do I reduce costs? How do I ensure regulation and compliance? Business model canvas. But ultimately, what you are doing is you are moving from product thinking to ecosystem thinking. That moving to ecosystem thinking is absolutely critical and important. Because if you are confining yourself to a small area, then probably somebody else will start disrupting your thinking process, and you may be a nobody probably in the next 6 months or even 2 years. But how do I have an ecosystem thinking is absolutely critical. So this is probably the last slide before we go in for any questions. How does design thinking differ from the traditional modes of thinking, right? Traditional thinking says, what's the right answer? Design thinking says, what's the right question? Always focus on the correct question, the right question. When I started my career, there was a very, very famous dialogue which said, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. I was always under the impression that I am paid my salary for solving problems. It dawned on me much, much later that my job was to identify the right problem. So what's the right question is very, very critical here. More talking, we spoke about it. Design thinking says, listen. Listen as if only you and the other person are there. The rest of the world is dead. Listen to what is being said. Listen to what is not being said. Listen to the pauses. Listen to the body language. Listen very, very deeply and intimately. When you have to ask question, ask open-ended question. Do not ask Boolean questions. That's the power of listening. Data. Data is needed. That's why in design thinking, we, instead of floating Google Forms, we speak to the people. When I listen to people, Okay, data may be available, but I am more interested in the stories. Data will only tell you that there is a problem. Stories will tell you why there is a problem, right? Listen to the stories about the people. First account stories, that is very, very important. Events, experience. I may have gone to a particular country, I may have gone to a particular mall, but that's an event. But what makes me talk about it to somebody, what makes me go there again and again, that's an experience. Talk about facts. Design thinking says talk about feelings. My friends, design thinking has a very, very short journey. It starts here, it ends here. So the more you are here at the heart level, right, then you are a design thinker. Now look at this side. On the design thinking side, everything is about the human being. On the other side, there is absolutely no human being there, right? Focus more on the person who is facing the problem. Become that person, and you will be able to come up with beautiful solutions wherein their life is changed. With this, in the available time, I will pause here. If there is any questions, I'm ready to take. Dennis, yeah.
Thank you very much, Ramki, and non-stop interruption there, so taking over Andrew's part as well. Commendable.
Thank
Really,
you. Thank
really
you.
very interesting. Personally, I need to look at the frictional forces slide and work very hard on myself on that. And I need to be more patient and listening. We are actually just entering a period here in Germany where we will have a new government in the next 2 months, and I think they need to be sitting around our design center talking with each other.
Absolutely. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Now we have a couple of questions posed to you. One, I think can you see the questions?
1 second. Let me.
Yeah. One's from a company IBAN XS here in the Netherlands. He's written the question to Ramki. How do you focus on the success in the last 2%? Very good question.
Absolutely, very good question. The last 2% has to be experienced by the person receiving your solution. If the person receiving your product, receiving your service becomes your product's brand ambassador, then you have the last 2% equal to 200% for that particular customer. Otherwise, you will be needlessly promoting the product because you have not affected that person's life. So if that person, if I talk about a particular product to somebody else and then say, I use this great product, why don't you also use it, right? Then that's the last 2%. And we are working in the open banking space under agenda setter. So thank you very much for the clear explanation. Thank you, Eddie. When working with a new client, how do you go about gaining their trust in order to take them on this journey? I'm conscious that cultural differences can make this a difficult task. You have hit the nail, Paul. Trust is something, that's gained. But you can't just say that, I'm going to trust you and then you start trusting me. That's not possible. But having said that, we have a tool called the cartographic view, wherein I put an effort to understand the complete ecosystem of my customer and say, this is how I understand you. Why don't you tell me if I'm right or not? That means I have put in effort without the customer's demand. And then I have, carved out the cartographic view. We have done that multiple times for, oil industry, for the academia, right? And then, we have told them, even for global universal banking, nobody put a gun on our head and said, where is your global universal banking? Why did you come up with that? We had twofold agenda to come up with a global universal banking. Number one, it is to tell the world that, we are not just a technology solutions provider. We understand the customer's pain. For us, the customer was a bank. So I understand your pain. I understand your world. I understand your language. I understand your jargon, right? That was the primary reason. And the secondary reason is in this bargain, I was able to show the length, breadth, and depth of my product suite, the richness of my product. That way, I was able to gain trust. So each time a CXO comes to our design center, they ask for a copy of that black book, which has the cartographic view of all our products. They say, even beyond my team, you people have understood my business very well. That's the power of, the cartographic view. It's a beautiful question, Paul. Thank you.
Ramki, if I can ask one from my side.
Sure.
Of course, I'm not able to be at your wonderful design center on a basis. If I was setting out such a session, what is your recommendation about the surroundings, the people who are in there, the moderation? How would that work best in your opinion? If I can't have you there to moderate, of course.
So sorry, Dennis, can you repeat the question? I did hear you, but if you can repeat the question.
Yeah, just for the people who don't have the availability to a wonderful design center, how or what would you recommend? What type of environment that this works best in, where we can get a group of people together without this knowledge that you have, and solve a solution or go through a second.
Yeah, nothing can compensate physical presence in our design center. Our design center is called 8012, and it's a FinTech Design Center, world's first design center, spread over 30,000 square feet, right? And like I said, nothing will compensate you coming here. But in the worst case, to make you invite to come to our center in Chennai, we can arrange for a virtual walkthrough of the session. Right.
Oh.
And that would take approximately an hour's time. And that will, I'm sure force you to, get your visas and, come down to Chennai. So that's one way, Dennis. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ramki.
Yeah.
So on that note, Ramki, I've seen we've come to the end of the session.
Yeah.
I just want to once again thank you so much for your valuable time this morning. Thank you for everyone that's attended. And
Pleasure.
I should be sending, or we should be sending out marketing and I with questions and the recordings to everyone. Anyone who wants to come back to me about any material that we've used this morning or any material that Ramki recommends, please feel free to come back to me and I shall make that happen. On that note, I wish you a wonderful rest of the day, Ramki.
Thank you.
And all the audience. And thank you for attending. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Thank you.